and I know what's going to happen. Okay, watch out. Preparing to live stream the meeting. All right, here we go.
I just got a notification that we're live.
Okay.
Like a YouTube notification.
Here we Wow, it just goes live. Hello, everyone. We're gonna okay. So everyone, pay no attention. I'm sharing the link to the show. So if we want to have any kind of interaction here or live audience, I have to make this Twitter window bigger because they hid the new tweet button. But I'm going to go out there and find the information about the show. I'm also going to pop out the chat. So let's say hi to the chat. Jimbo, say hi to the people.
Hi to the people.
Jimbo, it's your first time on camera. You're breaking through. We're doing a special introduction here while I get the chat set up and do the tweets. What do you want to say to the people?
Hello, people. It's nice to meet you.
How'd you get into Bitcoin? When did you first hear about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I first heard about Bitcoin probably in 2010 or 11. Somebody said, "Hey, did you read this white paper?" Somebody solved the double spend problem, and the first reaction that I had, which is what I think is what most people have, is like, that sounds like a scam. It'll never work. And then I just stopped paying attention. And then the next time I started paying attention was in 2012 after the big pump to $30, and it was down at like $9. And I said, oh man, maybe I should invest some and buy some of this. And I thought, but it could just be the death throes of a dying technology. I don't want to catch it on the downside. And then it went to $12. And I said, oh man, I should have bought it $9. Oh, but this could just be a little like, like a death prattle, like, I'm not gonna do it. Then it went to $25. And then, anyway, I just sat on the sidelines. So I eventually got a Mt. Gox account, briefly, and lost
funds through Dawala, or how did you try to transfer funds in?
Yeah, so because it was a very sketchy website based in a foreign country, and they needed all this information from me and banking stuff, I set up a totally separate bank account with a totally separate institution, funded it with cash, physical dollars. And then I use that to fund my Dwala account and use that to fund my Mt. Gox account. So that
this is magnificently libertarian of you. This is all the way. I just went ahead and transferred $20 to my Dwala account, and by the time I was sending my first little trial bubble over here, because I never sent money overseas or anything like this before either. But yeah, by the time I was putting my $20 in, they had broken the Dwala link, and they'd figure out that Mark Karpellis was using his personal Dwala account to transfer, I don't know, millions of dollars to Mt. Gox. And of course they shut him down. But did yours work? You transferred it to a company, to the Dwala, to the Mt. Gox. Did you get to buy something?
Yeah, it worked really well. I uploaded whatever, like $130. I bought one Bitcoin at about $127. Then I sold it at $135. Thought I was a genius. Took my investment off the table, so I just left like $10 up there to play with, like house money, and then that went bust with the rest of Mt. Gox. So.
Oh, but maybe it's still out there somewhere. All right. So the audience is getting ready. Everyone's giving us a thumbs up and a share. We're going to go ahead and start the show now. Apparently, when you just push go live from these days now on Zoom, it just goes live. There's no way for you to share the link for the thing that you're going live. So there's always going to be this kind of hiccup where the show goes live, but we want to share it because then there'll be an audience and maybe there'll be a phone call. And but we're going to just pretend none of this happened. So here we go. And it's so hard. It's so hard to read these without doing an Andreas impression or without falling into it, but we'll see what happens. There's another reason Bitcoin will win. There is a massive imbalance that most people here don't notice. Every person in this room has access to a bank account without currency controls, a bank account from which they can buy and sell any currency in the world, a bank account from which they can wire money anywhere in the world, a bank account from which they can access international markets like the Tokyo Stock Exchange or the German Stock Exchange, a market from which they can access credit and liquidity, auto loans and mortgages, a bank account which is powerful. That power is available to about 1 billion people on this planet, 1 billion people who have access to full-fledged international high liquidity banking facilities. There are 2 billion people who have no bank accounts at all. There are another 4 billion people who have very limited access to banking without international currencies, banking without international markets, banking without liquidity. Bitcoin isn't about the 1 billion. So you would say it more like, Bitcoin isn't about the 1 billion. Bitcoin is about the other 6.5 billion. The people who are currently cut off from international banking. What do you think happens when we're suddenly able to turn a simple text messaging phone in the middle of a rural area in Nigeria, connected to a solar panel, into a bank terminal, into a Western remittance terminal, into an international loan origination system, a stock market, an IPO engine? At first, nothing. But give it a few years. We've seen what happens with the development of the cell phone technology that was deployed in Africa faster than any technology ever in the history of humanity. We see small villages where they have no running water, wood fires to cook with, and no electricity, yet there's one little solar panel on top of a mud hut, and that connects them to the world. That phone gives them weather reports, grain prices at the local market, and connects them to the world. What happens when that phone becomes a bank? Because with Bitcoin, it can be a bank. What happens when you connect 6.5 billion people to a global economy without any barriers to access? Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. I was just reading a little bit of The Internet of Money by Andreas M. Antonopoulos, a friend of the show. He follows me on Twitter. It's true. You can look it up. We're joined by Jimbo. How's it going, Jimbo? Seem muted and frozen. Well, maybe we broke the whole system. Maybe it still works. But let's just keep it going, I guess, here on the Bitcoin Talk Show. He's muted and frozen. But anyway, it was interesting the way what Jimbo and I was talking about at the beginning kind of lined up with what Andreas was saying. That when we wanted to buy Bitcoin on Mount Gox and we wanted to make an adventure out into the world and send our little USA dollars out there to maybe buy some crazy investment in Japan using a company called Dawala that was from Australia, we could do it, right? We had the bank accounts to do it with. Jimbo could even create a company and we could do all kinds of other things. We have this amazing amount of financial freedom here in the United States that allows us to create these kind of entities and send our money all over the world. And what Andreas was saying is that other people don't have this power. Other people don't have access to this system. So if they were going to take their $100 or their $10 or whatever and make a play for it and try to buy something and make their life better or worse, and they lose all their money, they can't do it at all. They don't have any ability to do that. Jimbo, are you with us? Seem frozen. This is the test of the new Zoom system. It says on chat, we have another chat. It says his computer died and it rebooted. So we're going to go ahead and start Bitcoin Talk Show. I'm going to push the screen share button and we're going to see what's going on in Bitcoin today. I'm looking over to the side and it's funny on the video. You can probably see me looking to the side. Today is Monday, September 2nd, 2019. It's Labor Day. That's great. Labor Day. It's a holiday. Everyone has a day off. That I'm expecting lots of phone calls today. Everyone warm up your phone calls and your Skypes. We're even going to maybe try a thing where we let you directly into the Zoom chat so you can Zoom with us on the Zoom. Remember, we're paying for Zoom. So keep that in mind with the donations at the end. The price of Bitcoin is $9,932 with a high of $9,979 and a low of 9,606. That's a pretty tight range. That's $1 for this page. Doesn't really work. I think it's around I'm going to go with 9,000 Satoshis. Let's go with 9,944 Satoshis. Checking out our top story today, Bitcoin warning as serious vulnerabilities discovered. Let's see what's going on. Lightning Network users could lose their funds if the nodes are not upgraded. So first of all, let's downgrade from the media paranoia and the fear. Did you get your FUD? I got my FUD right there. I got a great little dose of it. It was FUD-tastic, but let's already go back over the line. If you upgrade your node, you won't lose your funds. So what are we really talking about here? People need to upgrade their nodes. If you upgrade your node, you won't lose funds, but there's some kind of vulnerability. Like they always say, the Lightning Network is reckless. You shouldn't put your life savings on here, but it's a great way to send around $10 in Bitcoin. You can even try it out. Send us a donation on the Lightning Network. A lot of people sent us dollars or pennies or 50 cents or whatever. You can send small amounts on the Lightning Network. Jimbo, you're back with us. What do you think about this security vulnerability? Should we be freaking out or should we be upgrading our nodes and accepting that software breaks sometimes?
Um, Both. I think that the Lightning Network was always even more beta than Bitcoin, and so it shouldn't be all that surprising that there were issues. But people should keep their nodes updated, whether they're regular core nodes or whether they're Lightning nodes.
That's right. Keep your nodes updated. Run the new software. Story over. Moving on. Lightning Network proving less electric for Bitcoin than promised. Well, again, I love these articles. Who promised what, and what's your judge of how electric the Lightning Network is? I think it's still working great. Now they say Bitcoin was thriving, the currency, the experiment succeeded. Oh, it's not over yet. This just looks like a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Things are not moving fast enough for this guy. He can't get his Lightning Network as electric as he wants. Jimbo, what do you think? I remember when they were saying SegWit would never reach adoption, and they brought up all those stories, and they're like, "Oh, this scale shows that it will never get adopted," and then somehow it got adopted. And the same thing with the Lightning Network. They're like, "You'll never get $100,000 on here. You'll never get $1 million on here yet." There seems to be a fair amount of liquidity. What do you think?
Um, yeah, so you started off with a reading from Andreas, and he likes to talk about scaling and what are you trying to scale to, and it's all about failing to scale gracefully. And Lightning Network is the next layer, and I think that it's growing at the speed that it can, and it won't be the last layer. We're going to scale in every way that we can.
That's right. And we can scale at the speed that we want to scale. Bitcoin isn't a company or a corporation. I think we're used to a lot of startups have an accelerated timeline, right? You have a certain amount of money. They call it a runway. And when your runway runs out, you better take off in your airplane or something because that's it. You're out of money. The Bitcoin runway is a little different. Bitcoin's runway is more based about the interest of people in Bitcoin. As long as someone like me is willing to talk about it every day, as long as someone else is willing to program on it every day, as long as companies are willing to make their products interface with Bitcoin and to write their code to whatever the new upgrades are, to stick with it, to do the Lightning Network, to do the whatever comes after that, Bitcoin continues. Bitcoin is more of an idea than a company. And an idea can move very slowly. There are ideas of democracy that founded in Athens thousands of years ago that only got their real show maybe in the American systems, in the other systems that really tested these ideas, and even now are continuing to test these ideas. Bitcoin's Lightning Network is shriveling due to terrible incentives. Okay, so this headline has a different take to it. This headline explains that people are not putting their money in the Lightning Network because maybe it's not a good idea to put your money in the Lightning Network. I did have a great series of conversations earlier this year with Nick Bhatia from the Time Value of Bitcoin. And what Nick had talked about is this idea that although the rate would be very small, you would be able to receive some kind of interest from holding your money in the Lightning Network and allowing it to be used for transactions. But you wouldn't really be letting someone else hold your money. This would be the first time that you could receive interest, you could receive money without risking your investment. Your investment would still be in your control. So it was a very interesting idea, and that kind of ability to make money without risking your capital, you'd be, even if you're making a very small percentage of interest on hopefully a very large amount of money, you could do very well. So I'm not so sure about this idea on the incentives. It may be bad for a normal person to receive a very small amount of interest, but eventually there may be banks and other large institutions that would come in with large liquidity who want the security of saying, because remember, on the Lightning Network, you still have your private keys. You could still say, okay, I'm done. I'm taking my keys back. But at the same time, your Bitcoin or your Lightning Bitcoin or whatever you want to call it, it's kind of like the hot dog at a baseball game. We're all passing the hot dog around and we can all use the same hot dog. And your hot dog gets reused over and over and over to send value to other people through this endless network of telephone where we're handing off the value to him, the value to him. And everyone gets a little piece of the hot dog, a very, 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 very small piece. But if you collected enough of those small pieces, you could put them together and have a really nice bite of a hot dog. And if you were a big company like Starbucks or Amazon, you could have several free hot dogs without having to invest your money anywhere. All you have to do is run an efficient Lightning node, is what Nick was theorizing about. We don't know that this would be true, but this would be an example of a positive incentive on the Lightning Network. What do you think, Jimbo? Are the incentives good now? Do we need to improve the incentives so that more people will pass the hot dog?
I prefer first party hot dogs that have not been reused. Personally, that's my personal hot dog policy. Um, I don't know about the incentives on the Lightning Network. I guess I would need to know more about what they're trying to measure. A lot of our measurement tools don't tell us necessarily what we really want to know. So it would be curious to see what what's the expected Lightning Network growth rate that this author hasn't seen. So I think it's okay, and I think the incentives are more or less just fine. One thing I remember when I was reading about how the Lightning Network worked, I remember reading that the punishment for trying to cheat the network was that you would lose all your funds in the channel. I would like to see them improve that a little bit so that maybe total loss isn't the outcome in case you have a non-reachable partner. But I think it's going fine.
Well, especially if someone hacks your account and then uses your account to try to cheat the Lightning Network, and now your money from your account is taken. So no, I don't know anything about that particular proposal. But yeah, you probably freaked out a bunch of people. They hate it when anyone can take their money. That idea really freaks them out. But yeah, this is a pretty standard fear article. We've got a lot of these today. I think this is going to be a great day for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So let's keep it going. Bitcoin averts bearish trend change, but stalls beneath key price average. All right, we're going to get right into it. Oh, we don't have Sebastian, or we don't have Godpool here. We have Sebastian Sinclair. Sounds like Spider-Man. And I love the way that they've moved the view up to the top of the article, because this is all that anyone ever reads. People are only really interested in this short-term market predictions brought to you quickly. So let's get it done off like a band-aid. Bitcoin's price action has stalled beneath the 100-day moving average. Ooh, signaling indecision and increasing the odds of another sell-off. The daily technicals, RSI and awesome oscillator, show no signs of a relief in bearish selling pressure, at least not for the next few days. Should bulls concede defeat this week? That's not how this word works. No, that's not right. Expect another retest of 9,300 on supporting bear volume. So there it is. It sounds like the price is going down in the short term unless the bulls do something, and then the price will not go down in the short term. What do you think? Okay, so I've pushed pause on my screen sharing. We're going to go to the all important, hopefully full screen and big so you can see it, always upside down, Bitcoin price predictor ball. Get ready. Now, I read recently on the Magic 8 Ball page, you're not supposed to shake a Magic 8 Ball as it causes bubbles, but most users do. it said on the Wikipedia. Most users shake. So will the price of Bitcoin go higher? Will it go up? Signs point to yes. We have it right here. Signs point to yes. This is the first positive predictor from the Bitcoin price predictor, which is only available here on the World Crypto Network. Our first positive predictor. If you have noticed, the Bitcoin price was up today. The ball speaks the truth. There's no way to interfere this. It went down a little. Now it went up a little. The ball says it's going up more. Meanwhile, Craig Wright challenges court order requiring him to pay $500,000 in Bitcoin. Who called it? We called it right here on the World Crypto Network. We told everybody this won't stand. They're going to challenge. There's going to be blah, 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 blah. And they're saying Reinhardt did not have the power to enter the order. They're saying that Wright has challenged the order until September 24th. This is great. Now he's saying that he needs time to give them the Bitcoin because of the hurricane. It's the hurricane which incidentally is named Dorian. This is Hurricane Dorian. So Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto wreaks his revenge on Craig Wright Satoshi Nakamoto, getting wrecked here. He's just gonna send over 50 million or whatever. Oh, good. They've got McCormick is quoted saying that Wright probably doesn't have the money. Oh, that's good. Let's quote him some more. And yeah, of course, everyone says he doesn't have the money. We all know he doesn't have the money. If you had 500,000 Bitcoin, wouldn't you just do something else? Why would you? Who would care if you were? I am Satoshi. You're Satoshi. My private beach is nicer than your private beach. I mean, you have 500,000 Bitcoins. So no, and I do love the idea that he's supposed to get the Bitcoin back from a bonded courier, just like Back to the Future 2. He has to stand out in the rain at 10 o'clock on October 10th on 2020 and the certain thing and have a certain ID and wear a rose in his buttonhole and all these things. It's a great story. And I love the way it goes. But no, Craig Wright, the victim, like I said on the Bitcoin group, the victims will get nothing. Craig Wright will pay nothing. Craig Wright has nothing. The only thing that's probably going to happen is whatever he does have will be taken and maybe he'll have to go to jail and have to pay a lot of lawyers' fees and all that. This is all, anytime there's a lawsuit, just think that's a victory for both sides. That's a ton of billable hours. Billable hours. That's what the world's about. So let's see how many more. We got some more stories. Let's see. All right, but Jimbo, what do you want to say on the Craig Wright? Do you think he's the Satoshi? Is he going to pay any money?
Yeah, I don't think that it's likely that we'll see any money out of Craig Wright on this story. But at a slightly higher level, what I'd like to advocate for, and people might not agree with me on this one, I think it's time we just disown Satoshi Nakamoto, the handle. Like whoever that person or group or people were in the past is really great what they did. They made Bitcoin. But any amount of speculation as to the identity of Satoshi reinforces the idea that that's a good and okay thing to do, and that maybe somebody will come forward as Satoshi. And it breathes fuel into these new entrants who are like, hey, I'm Satoshi now. And I think, I mean, what I would love to see us do more is just disown the idea of Satoshi Nakamoto. And it's like, whoever Satoshi was, great, did something in the past. Now it's 10 years later. Don't care. Like, and any speculation ought to be treated with disdain. That's my own personal 2 cents.
Now, I think we could emotionally and politically and whatever, we have the ability to let this go and to let this be a ghost or a symbol. If it wasn't for the money, if it wasn't for the giant pile of money, we could all let it go and it'd be water under the bridge that Bitcoin had a mysterious creator, and some think it's the frozen guy, Hal Finney, and his head's in a jar and he's frozen, and other things it's the train engineer Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto, and other think it's the Australian, or they think it's Scabo, or they think it's another guy, maybe from MIT, and all that kind of thing, and they think it's that criminal guy that's in jail. But no, it's the money. It's the money, the money, the money. And if you want to be really unpopular really fast, talk about taking away Satoshi's money. We did a whole show on this right here on the World Crypto Network with Ray Youssef, the CEO of Paxful. Shout out to Paxful. You got a CEO who's willing to talk about ideas, even dangerous, unpopular ideas like taking away the Satoshi Nakamoto money. If we soft fork, hard fork, if we changed Bitcoin and said, okay, this is Bitcoin, no Satoshi, and we're doing the unthinkable here, right? We are mankind killing its own gods, right? We are at Shakespeare level 12, right? Everyone's getting out the books and the analogies. These crazy Bitcoiners, they cut off their own head. They did this, and it's another one of these like the DAO hack for Ethereum. You have to break your own rules to have rules. You have to break your own rules one time so that you can have a perfect system with no one who can come back and rock your apple cart, because till the end of time, until the Satoshi money is declared officially cryptographically dead, or Satoshi says he lost the keys, or something, how he proves it, but he lost it. Until then, you're always going to have this sword hanging over your head, right? The Edgar Allan Poe, the sword of Damocles, this thing that's coming down, and you're like, everything's fine. But then Satoshi came back and sold all of his Bitcoin. Everything's fine. But then Satoshi came back and he's this drunken Australian asshole that everyone hates. Everything's fine. And then the Bitcoin moved. All they have to do is move to rattle the market. So we're talking about nuclear disarmament. We're talking about disarming the Satoshi. And this freaks everyone out because you libertarian guys, sorry to bunch you into the box, but you don't like being disarmed. You don't even like talking about the idea of being disarmed, even so much so that you would unsubscribe to an open program of ideas and access like the World Crypto Network, which is actually challenging you to think of these ideas. We're like, you don't like it, like these foreign invader, like, yes, if we did that once, what you have to do to really get this, you have to go into my shoes and you have to say, if we disarmed the Satoshi just one time, and we were like, okay, one time, but then they'd come back to us with ISIS, and then they'd come back to us with this, and then they'd come back. So it is but that's called a slippery slope argument for a reason. It's only an argument. It's actually a fallacy. It's a disadvantage. But it's a legitimate thing. People get very emotional about slippery slopes. Like, and that's why even talking about them is a slippery slope. Even discussing this, putting the idea multiple times, Tom has mentioned disarming Satoshi. He must be some kind of a goddamn communist, socialist scumbag. So Jimbo, go ahead and skate out onto that ice.
Sure.
You've heard my argument. I'm being reasonable. Can we disarm the Satoshi? I mean, that's if you want him to go away, and I believe it's reasonable, and we've already done really well not having a creator, having a mysterious creator, not having a Vitalik to do the DAO hack, not having a Charlie Lead to sell at the top. We're dodging some bullets here.
Well, if sure. So to throw another piece into this puzzle, the keys that Satoshi's coins are locked up with are, as I understand it, like just public-private key pairs, and so they are even more what's the word, like quantum hackable, should quantum computers become powerful enough, than kind of our modern signatures that are hidden behind hashes. So this is my understanding. I understand it could be incorrect. So one might worry, if quantum computers continue to get better, and there might come a day where quantum pirates are on the verge of taking Satoshi's coins anyway, even if Satoshi got rid of the keys, right? So we're not there yet, but you could imagine a day where quantum computing and quantum pirates funding such computing are getting closer and closer to being able to crack keys large enough to just take Satoshi's funds, at which point we're going to start a new conversation, which is, irrespective of whether Satoshi has the keys or not, they're going to move. And should they be a bounty for quantum pirates or not?
So all right. So now you've introduced a new element here with the quantum pirates. So let's say that all of the other addresses that are in use or controlled by a human or whatever, they get the notification, you need to upgrade, right? If you don't upgrade, your coins are going to be stolen, but no one can upgrade the Satoshi coins. No one can reach them. They're in the Tibet, they're in the mountains or whatever. He's not listening. He's not gay, which again, could be true, not just for Satoshi coins, but also like a lot of, old people's coins, a lot of safe deposit box coins. I mean, if we need to upgrade to beat the quantum thing, like if you don't upgrade your Windows, you lose all your money. This is this very new thing for people. So yeah, in that case, would you disarm the Satoshi? Because now we're doing those little slivers, right?
Yeah. So in that world, I could imagine a case where, so suppose, I mean, suppose we were getting close to the quantum cracking ECDSA and the Satoshi keys. In that world, what we would want to do is first soft fork in some kind of quantum resistant signature scheme, and then give people an opportunity to upgrade. One could imagine having some kind of block limit where it's like there's going to be a rolling block limit. Every blocks that are older than this, if the UTXO is from that block or older, it just that can't move anymore. So you have whatever, some period of time as measured in blocks to move your coins to the new signature scheme. And after that, they just roll off the end and they're no longer available. And that would protect not only Satoshi's keys, but any other keys that have been lost over time. And that might be a more palatable approach to kind of say, look, you have plenty of time. It's we're just going to soft fork in this limit that says any UTXO that's older than this that is vulnerable to quantum hacking after such and such time is just not spendable anymore. And so you could kind of roll it in, not worry about which keys were specifically Satoshi's, and just say, look, any old keys become contributions to everyone's collective value by deflating the total supply as they fall off.
Well, then all the red flags just went off because you just took someone's money and gave it to someone else. So you're Robin Hood now. You're a total socialist. It's over. But yeah, I've always loved this idea of just forking Bitcoin and taking the Satoshi coins and saying, okay, this fork of Bitcoin is Bitcoin plus foundation, and the foundation has the Satoshi coins, and it's done. But I think you could always do that for a lot of different coins. You could fork them and take the coins. You could fork them and not take the coins, and all these forks where you could claim your coins, but if you don't claim your coins by a certain day, they just roll your coins into the treasury, these kind of things. So there's been a lot of those ideas, and I think eventually those ideas might come to Bitcoin. And this idea of disarming Satoshi is really just a morals and a value debate, and that's why I'm so drawn to it, and I think it's so fun. And I'll play both sides if you want. You want to flip a coin, I'll go to the other side. But because what this is really about is potential destruction, and should you take action to avoid potential destruction, and how great the potential destruction would be, and if the potential destruction would ever happen, and whatever. And what I really think you come down to when you look for the middle ground between these things, and it's going to horrify me as a nuclear disarmament person, as an anti-weapons person, but what you really come down to is what we really need is we need this code in the bag ready to go. We need a Satoshi Nakamoto deterrent where if he comes back and he wants to, well, and then it becomes a whole, well, then when do you use the deterrent? But put that to the side. You put the deterrent in the box first, your super weapon to destroy your super villain, and then you start debating about when your super villain is a super villain, if he's a super villain, if the whole existence of it's a super villain. I have to say, really, if we want to say philosophically, and let's get into the mind of Satoshi. If I was Satoshi, I think I would have thought of, and I would have welcomed, and I would have liked this idea. I don't think Satoshi made Bitcoin to make his family into an everlasting wealth dynasty like the Tesher ash pools in the William Gibson novels, the giant family that benefited from artificial intelligence and was sleeping through the decades, running the family from cryo freeze. I don't think that was his plan. Cryo freeze, again, we're mentioning Hal and Satoshi quite a lot together these days. But no, I don't think that was his plan. I don't think that's what he wanted. I think he would have said, for the good of Bitcoin. See, I always like these coins being there as a pillar, like presenting value up, so holding up the value of Bitcoin, where you could say, well, even if everyone in the world sold their coins, there'd still be these Satoshi coins that no one sold, and then there'd be mine. So there'd be mine plus the Satoshi coins that are never getting sold, and then then we'll have something. But and if you pull them away, if you deactivated them, you encrypted them, you remove them from the network, then you're really putting those pillars in, because then no one can really ever move those coins. You're just locking it down. So I think it's something worth talk about, something worth think about. And I think we want to go ahead and pause the stories for a second here and try to open up the Bitcoin Talk Show. We've broken $10,000. The Bitcoin Talk Show, as you know, we make shows, we go on tour, price goes up. This keeps happening. You can go back and watch the old archives. They're like, the price has gone up this much since you turned on the thing. And I'm like, well, it's all of our positive energy working together. It's all coming together, all of this energy all over the world. Plus, Of course, Bitcoin's just a really great thing, and people are figuring that out. But we're going to go for the full train wreck here. So we're going to invite everyone from the chat into the show. So everyone be sure to talk one person at a time. I've got some mute buttons. I can try to mute people. Now we've got a telephone here that can handle either one Skype phone call or one normal phone call. So probably don't use that normal phone call line. Probably use the Skype line. So I'm going to say join the Skype conversation right here, World Crypto Network. But also, we're going to give a shot here on Zoom. You can download the software at zoom.us, or you can phone call with a direct phone number that would be a local phone call for you, allegedly. You're going to come in internationally. You're going to say there's no Dubai number or something, and I'll admit there's no number or whatever. But here it is. It's not going to let me. It's too big to. It's too big to copy and paste. So let me see here. Dial by location. I'm going to separate this into two. So I sent you the Skype. I'm sending to the chat. Here you have to be online to see the chat. You can join us on the Zoom. You'll be in the room with me and Jimbo and the screen share. You can call us on the cell phone here. I'll answer you. It'll take a second because I'm going to have to switch the audio over because it never remembers which audio it's on. And then I'll try to bring you in through the board. I'm trying to watch the board better. Let me know how's the mix in the audio. Is it too loud or too soft? Yesterday I was soft, Jimbo was loud. I'm trying to fix that with the board. Give us a thumbs up and a share. When you're in Europe, you can get the Skype. Get Skype for free at Microsoft.com or whatever. And give us a Skype call. Also, you might be able to try it with Zoom. You can do the Zoom software and you can join us directly. Or you can try one of these phone numbers and see if there is a local phone number. I was told, I think there's supposed to be international numbers, but we might have to pay them more money. We're already paying Zoom money for this video conferencing here. So if this is better or worse than Google Hangouts, let's appreciate it because now we're paying money. So it's $15 a month. So it's not killing us, but it's more than zero. So I'm going to drink water while the people call in. Jimbo, is everyone going to join? Tell people how easy it is to phone call the show and be a co-host and everything.
Yeah, so I installed Zoom just before the show and it went pretty smoothly. You got to log in. So you might have to create an account or use, I think they support Google and Facebook and maybe some other login mechanisms. So that's not too bad. Yeah, so this is my first time using Zoom and it's working out pretty well for me. I wanted to go back to that topic of Satoshi's coins real briefly. If there was no threat from eventual like quantum hacking, I would just say no. Like I would be totally on the side of nope, like let the coins sit there. And if somebody ever cracks the code and moves them, like fine, so be it. But if we eventually enter a world in which it will increasingly be likely that the things are just stolen, then really you're not talking about all you're talking about is like preventing theft at that point. Like you're talking about protecting property by destroying it as opposed to allowing somebody else to steal something. So that's a little bit outside of the usual is it okay to steal something type of thing. It's like, well, this thing is going to get stolen. Should it be a bounty or should we just send it to the nether realm? Like they've missed their opportunity to protect it. It's slightly different.
Well, I still think we could potentially disarm that Satoshi and it'd be no problem at all. And everything would just drift along normally. We just wouldn't have a Satoshi and we would be, I just like the Shakespearean aspects of it. I think it would be the greatest thing ever. I think people would talk forever about how great those crazy Bitcoiners were, that they were even willing to cut off the head of their own god.
Well, so
really just, it's truly like the word iconoclast means destroying icons, like taking them down from the walls and smashing them. And there's all these paintings throughout the world of the Dutch churches after the iconoclast movement where they went through it. There was a bunch of shrines in the churches and there was a bunch of, saints and there was a bunch of extraneous stuff. There was extra stuff there. And they went through and they were like, no, smash, 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 smash. And they really made it look minimalist. It looks very clean in there. If Bitcoin without a Satoshi, very clean, very strong. No Satoshi, never comes back. And again, I think Satoshi would want this.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like a reasonable argument. I could see. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I don't feel like it's an immediately like important thing that we take care of right away. And ultimately, it'll be based on whatever the consensus of Bitcoiners decide, right? So this is a consensus based thing, and everybody would have to agree. So uh, I think, in all likelihood, nothing will happen because achieving consensus on that would be difficult without the threat of like an imminent theft. If there was an imminent threat theft from quantum piracy, I think you could maybe get consensus to like shut them down. But I think what you might see here's another proposal, right? Here's another idea. Suppose you had a soft fork rule that said, um, as coins get older and older, as the UTXOs get older and older on the blockchain, you have a slowly increasing mandatory fee so that over time, Satoshi's coins, if moved, would first provide, a small, they'd have to burn some amount of it, or they'd have to send some amount of it to the miner as a fee. If you picked some kind of combination of that, you might be able to get an incentive system that caused people who had lost old coins or who had old coins to move them into, into newer addresses um, without like explicitly saying Satoshi's coins are burned. So, but at the same time, if all you do is have a mandatory fee, then you also you're also incentivizing quantum pirates to team up with miners. So, you got to work through all that.
It's amazing. Someone's broken the YouTube chat. It's pretty cool. Like, no matter how much we hide or remove this user, they must have found a way around the YouTube chat. So congratulations to them. They really broke the chat. Maybe they should just call in to the show, because you could call in now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Or you could call us on any of these amazing Zoom numbers, or click the Zoom link that we posted into the chat before the chat got spammed to death. So congratulations to chat spammer. You are the man. You broke the chat. So we're back to screen share. We're going to check out some more articles here on the old show. Yes, about the Satoshi thing. Yeah, I still think we could do it. I still think it's a thing worth doing. I think it's a thing worth having a deterrence, a thing worth having. And I don't think it's a slippery slope. I think it's a one-time whoop, and you're done. And hopefully those coins are frozen anyway. Hopefully they're never coming back. Hopefully this is just a hypothetical argument here and a bunch of nonsense. But if it's not, and if we don't develop a deterrent, and if we don't develop an attitude towards a deterrent where we think it's acceptable and all these things, then we're going to find ourselves in a position where it happens and we have nothing to stop it. And then we have to deal with it. And then we always have to think about dealing with it. It's always going to be out there. So we'll see. But Craig Wright has challenged his order. PayPal caught overcharging clients. Is Bitcoin ready to take over? Well, News BTC, you write some very funny articles and headlines, but I don't think it's going to be a one-to-one. PayPal has always had problems with grievances. PayPal has always had paybacks and freezes and all these kind of things. And many people don't like PayPal. And that has not given us a mass to overthrow them, or for people to even stop using Venmo, which is owned by PayPal. Venmo, which has your payments shared by default. The EFF has had a great movement trying to get Venmo to fix this setting. This is a broken default setting. It allows anyone to view a stream of Jim paid Fred for concert tickets. Fred paid Joe for Chinese food, which is very innocuous and not a big deal, except that you can download the entire feed. And they've done studies where they're like, oh, we can tell how often you're buying Chinese food from this. We can tell how often you're paying your friend back. We can tell how good a friend you are from how often you go out to Chinese food and how often you pay him back. Like, there's a mountain of wonderful free information here that Venmo is giving away for no good reason. Maybe because they started on Facebook and they needed a feed, or they needed an activity feed, or it looks good. You can say, oh, a lot of people are using Venmo. This must be good software. I don't know why they need this feed, but they won't turn it off. And at the same time, people won't change their settings and they won't stop using Venmo. And I don't think they're going to just stop using PayPal. But remember, for years, PayPal teased us and danced with us, and they wanted to have Bitcoin. And I'm sure they have the code for a full Bitcoin system with altcoins sitting right there where you could be trading and holding, and PayPal would be your wallet, because they talked about that a lot publicly. And if you're a company like this, you don't talk about something publicly without having 20 guys working on it and have a full mock up. And then I've heard this many times about the banks. I have a lot of friends who used to work in banks, and they're like, yeah, a bank will run a whole project for 2 or 3 years with tons of guys with real graphics and real project. And then they'll say, we don't like it. And they'll just cancel the project. So PayPal probably did the same thing with their cryptocurrency rollout. Jimbo, what do you think? Are people just going to quit PayPal overnight?
Well, PayPal has carved out its niche, including Venmo. So no, I don't believe people are going to stop using it overnight. And the fact that they had dreams of doing a real, so to speak, internet cryptocurrency type thing back in the day, by virtue of having to work with the legacy banking system, they became what they are. So, but no, I don't think people are going to stop using them based on this.
Yeah, wishful thinking from a Bitcoin newspaper of sorts. Venezuela's Bitcoin trading explodes amid alleged anti-Maduro plot. And this is another one of those where, I don't know, I guess it says CoinDance. They did have, so there are statistics here. CoinDance is being used. So we can say technically there is more action. I don't know if that's more action from 5 rich billionaires or 3 millionaires. I don't know. You can't really quantify what the action here is. There says there's a coup possibly happening in Caracas, and that people are thinking maybe this will save good old Bitcoin in Venezuela. But it's always interesting to get these stories out of Venezuela. We really don't know what's going on down there. But what do you think, Jimbo? Is Bitcoin trading exploding? Is this plot going to be the thing?
I don't know about what the relationship to the plot is. I do know that part of Venezuela's socialization governance structure allows for very cheap electricity. And so for some folks, cheap or free electricity, for some folks mining Bitcoin, even at a price that we might think, or electricity costs that we might think wouldn't work, was working for them based on how cheaply they could get the electricity. So I'm happy to see that at least some people in Venezuela have an option other than their state currency.
Free electricity is always the thing. It's so funny to think back. We were talking about Jimbo's first Bitcoins at the top of the show and talking about Mount Gox. And I think about myself and think about when I've had access to free electricity, and if Bitcoin had existed, and if I had had the self-control to not really overuse the access to electricity. When I was working at the computer labs as a student, I could have parked a couple of computers in there anywhere. They would have run fine for years and years and years and mined the Bitcoin slowly. Same thing at the law firm. I always could have put a couple of computers under my desk. It would have been a little obsessive and a little obscene, and they would have run all the time. There might have been heating and cooling issues. It's so hard to even turn your miners off and on at night or during the day, those kind of things. But yeah, it would have been sweet to have free power. I'm sure the people of Venezuela, or the people that work at the hydroelectric dams, or whatever they are, those kind of, they would have loved, they must be loving the Bitcoin. Anywhere you can plug in at least a computer for free, or one of these new miners or whatever, ASIC or whatever, you can run it for free. That'd be great.
Yeah, I was looking into solar because I thought it would be cool to set up like a little solar shed and just have like a totally separate building that mined and used electricity from the sun. But unfortunately, in the little bit of research that I did, it seemed like it was going to cost at least a Bitcoin to set up an entirely functional shed. So the capex of getting your first shed going is pretty high.
Oh yeah, well, and I know a lot of people who had early Bitcoin, and they took the early Bitcoin and bought miners, and they got more Bitcoin and they bought more miners, and and you think that it would be going well and that they're running a business and all these kind of things, and they look back on it and they're like, if I had just held the early Bitcoin, I would have been fine. And a lot of my friends have started businesses and traveled the world and done all this stuff, and really helped Bitcoin adoption and started these companies. But at the same time, at the end of the day, they kick their shoes off and they say, if I had just held the Bitcoin I had then and not started this big dumb company, I would have had more Bitcoin. So I think it's gonna be that way our whole lives. We'll never have what we used to have. We're always gonna have less Bitcoin, and maybe Bitcoin will always be more valuable. And that's just another one of these psychological things you have to deal with, right?
Well, it's going to be a little while, right? We gotta climb up the S curve. Everything we've seen right now so far on price, in my opinion, is just like the bumps in the graph compared to the real takeoff moon spike, where we S curve in and then you start to see adoption. When I talk to um, regular everyday folks these days, almost nobody has any kind of an opinion about Bitcoin, or like, oh, maybe I heard about it at one time, but nobody has it yet. So I think we're still a long way from adoption, and it's not going to be until the early and late majorities and eventually the laggards start to catch on as well, that we eventually see a stable enough price where it would make sense to do uh, a Bitcoin business that would do better than just holding some coins.
Yeah, we're definitely not seeing any kind of retail adoption this time. It's a lot of financial institutions buying Bitcoin, which is unfortunate for all the normal people who really need to be buying Bitcoin and should be buying Bitcoin, but once again aren't. Yeah, I get all the from my relatives. Oh, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? And then I've got other ones where they're like, yeah, I looked back. There's multiple emails where he told me at 125, at 150, at 250, at 3, like email after email where I'm like, maybe you really should get some of this, or maybe you should put a couple $100 in, or maybe you should put all this. No one can do it. No one can this kind of outside the box thinking. Even for myself, what I put in with my savings and what I got out of it and what I still try to hold on to, these kind of things, it's an incredible risk, and they'd all rather do it when it's popular and when it's up. Like even now we're back over 10K. I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, now's a good time to buy. And it's like when it was under 10K and it was on sale, they're like, no, I can't buy then. That's too inexpensive. So there's just something in our human nature. We can't time that right. And then there are other people who are really good and who can time it right, and whose charts and graphs and numbers, at least that's what they say. And if they really could time it right, why are they still working? If Roger Ver really had all this money, why does he even? Oh, it's just ego. But why do you even care about what Bitcoin thinks about you or whatever? I would just be out on the beach there, and for Roger, maybe I'd be training jujitsu every day. I don't know, but whatever makes you happy. And I guess see, and then Andy here was waiting for 9K, and I have that too, where you're waiting for round numbers. I wanted to be a millionaire, you know. Well, now it looks like being a little less than that would be pretty good compared to having not so much at all. All these kind of things. So you have to have a more flexible thing, and I think there's something to be said about the non-emotional tact that maybe the traders take to this, and maybe that the professional gamblers take, and the people that are just better at buying and selling than your
Well,
average Joe.
well, in the future, people will toil their whole lives to be a whole coiner. Like being a Bitcoinaire will be its own enormous achievement. So fret not. There's still plenty of time.
We'll just see if we can hold on. Let's keep the stories going. Bitcoin mining farms are flourishing on the ruins of Soviet industry in Siberia. A pretty cool story about mining taking off in Siberia. Oh, cool. CoinDesk is doing this for all their articles now. They're like, no one reads. So we'll just put 3 paragraphs at the beginning of the article. So here we go. I'm just going to read the paragraphs. CoinDesk is making not reading really easy for me. They say, the takeaway: Russia's abandoned Soviet era factories are enjoying a second life as cryptocurrency mining facilities. Siberia's big hydro power plants, another legacy of the USSR, have lured miners with cheap electricity. The favorable energy prices and naturally cold climate are turning Siberia into an international mining hub, with miners from Europe, Asia, and the US placing their rigs in local farms. So very cool story. Again, like the China coin story from the other day, this sounds like crazy futuristic sci-fi stuff to me. When I got into Bitcoin, it was still a big joke and everybody was super critical of it. And you were a moron for even believing in Bitcoin at all, let alone 100 other cryptocurrencies and smart contracts. But apparently we're getting down to that point, the kind of cyberpunkification of the world. The William Gibson is coming true. Everything we've always said is all coming true. So are we going to start seeing data havens in Brazil? Are we going to see server farms? Are entire countries? Is there going to be a need for a sea land, a real sea land with servers that are independent from the British government, that are just running rogue servers broadcasting pirate data signals? I mean, are we getting that? Because it seems to me, as this article clearly says, Siberia is cold. Siberia has hydropower, and apparently somebody dragged a network cable out there because they're running your miners in Siberia now. So here we go. Bitcoinification, cypherpunk of the world. Unite. Let's all be digital nomads. Let's take down all the borders. Is this it, Jimbo? They're mining in Siberia. Are we going to transform other parts of the world next?
Oh yeah, I'm totally looking forward to it. The nice thing about Bitcoin is it doesn't care where in the world that it's mined. As long as you have internet access and cheap electricity, it just wants the cheapest electricity that it can find. And so, whereas in the past you needed to have, if you were going to invest, say, in developing an electricity provider, you needed to have buyers. You needed to have access to a major metropolitan area, or at least some kind of a suburb that could purchase the electricity that you were manufacturing. But now with Bitcoin, you just park some shipping containers full of miners next door, and then now you can subsidize until people build your citadel next to your power plant. So I think this enables all kinds of useful extraction of electricity that wasn't previously possible. So, for example, you mentioned hydroelectric dams in Siberia. Hydroelectric opportunities are not often very near to major city centers, but they are just out in the wilderness somewhere. So here we have an opportunity to, say, build a dam and a Bitcoin mining facility at the same time. And that's just the whole purpose of this dam. Now, once you have electricity in place and internet access in place, well, then people might want to move there. There might be reasons to build out. So I think this will renew interest in building new cities. I mean, I would love to see that happen. I say I think it'll happen, but what I would love to see happen is new investment in renewable energy that is already abundant, such as hydro, geothermal, these types of things, in places where people otherwise wouldn't really necessarily want to move to. But once you get the infrastructure going, it might prompt more of that development.
And again, this is the most cypherpunk idea imaginable to me, that you could just take a shipping container full of miners, pull it up to Siberia, run it in the same way. Like you're saying, maybe you have a plan, you want to build a hydroelectric dam in the middle of nowhere, and everyone's like, that's stupid, we'd have to run a cable from there to send the power off. But instead, you just mine hydro into Bitcoin, then send the Bitcoin off on SneakerNet. You can carry it off on a USB stick. You can strap it to a truck. You can put it underneath. You can put it in a package, hide it in a book. You could write the piece of paper down. There's a million ways to get your Bitcoin out of your remote hydroelectric Bitcoin dam power running software. I mean, people, when they resold them, people bought those missile silos in the US, the old silos from the nuclear weapons, and you could live in a silo. And it was kind of cool. And some people certainly made a lot of chemical drugs in silos and all those kind of abandoned silos. But if you think in the other way, oh, it'd be way cooler to live in a hydroelectric dam in the middle of nowhere. You're on the water, you've got the power. Now you're generating Bitcoin. Maybe you're even making money. You take that money to town, you buy your food, your goods, whatever, you bring it back to your hydroelectric dam in the middle of nowhere. The same could be said for really efficient solar panels, really efficient windmills. We have a lot more potential nomadic opportunities. You still kind of have to be connected, right? You have to have your network connection to mine your Bitcoin. You have to have your network connection because you're addicted to the internet, all those kind of things. But your nomadic possibilities, your off the grid possibilities expand once you think about storing your extra power, not just in batteries for use as power, but storing your electric power, your extra power in Bitcoin as use as money.
Well, yeah, the extreme other end of the spectrum is also possible. So you're mentioning getting off the grid. You could also totally get on the grid. So some years ago, Neil Stephenson gave a talk at a conference called Solve for X. And his big idea was enormous buildings. The pitch basically was, today, when somebody wants to make the world's tallest building, they make it 100 feet taller than the previous world's tallest building. Nobody's trying to make one that's 2 or 3 or 15x as tall. But Stephenson's point was that we have the technology to build buildings that are way, way taller than anything we've ever seen. Like using conventional techniques, we could make buildings that were, say, 15 or 20 kilometers tall. So an amazing cypherpunk feature that I would see, which is actually totally on the grid, would be to build a hydroelectric dam out in the middle of nowhere where the land is really cheap, use it to finance for Bitcoin, and then use that Bitcoin to pay for the citadel, for the 15 to 20 kilometer building on top of the dam. Like it's just one enormous spire out in the middle of the Canadian wilderness that people then all want to flock to. Because once you have a 15-kilometer building, you'll need all kinds of things. You'll need subways that go vertical to take people up and down in there. You'll need Subway sandwich artisans to come in there and make sandwiches for the people. You'll be selling the real estate, people will want condos and such. So that I think would be a really amazing cypherpunk future.
That's interesting that you said he would go up. I thought for sure you're going to say that we should go down and that we dig into the earth, or the other idea that we should just go long ways and that we should just build like a skyscraper on its side and just build really long buildings and somehow take advantage of that. A similar idea was being talked about. I was listening to the great Joe Rogan this morning. He was talking to John Carmack. I'm still listening to that. It's hours and hours long. But one of the things they talked about was virtual reality. And if you had a play space where you could guarantee, you say, we're only going to use this space to play VR, like a big warehouse or a really big warehouse, and you rigged it with all this VR stuff and you had all the obstacles mapped and marked on the VR so that, the wall is there in the real world. You could play these games in an incredibly large warehouse, and the larger the warehouse, the larger the game. And pretty soon, maybe we're not even playing a game. Maybe you're just putting it on and walking around this crazy world where everyone else is walking around with these crazy goggles and Ready Player One and all these kind of ideas. So it does happen really fast. And another thing about the Citadel idea you had there, you could do it at Lieberland. They've got a little strip of land there. And when I saw their graphics years ago, they had pictures of the kind of buildings that would take advantage of only having a little isthmus of land. So it had like a little platform, and then it went up, and then it was a big ball, and then it went up more or whatever. But yeah, I think you could do it, but it'd be interesting to say. Do the people in the chat, do they want to live in a giant tall building? We'll see. We're checking out the price of Bitcoin. It's up 5.48% in the last hour or so. That's $10,116. This is the CoinDesk average price. And looks like it's gone nowhere but up in the last hour since we started the show. It used to be around $9,900. Now it's more like $10,100. So I think we've got maybe only a couple more shows. We talked about Siberia. Oh, this is just Max Kaiser sets a 28,000 Bitcoin target. Now, Max has had plenty of other targets. He's got the $100,000 target. He's got all these targets. So there's always a target out there with Max Kaiser. He's also just keeps drumming in this whole that the hash rate follows the price and the price follows the hash rate, and just people keep mining, and the more people that keep mining, then the more people that buy Bitcoin, then the price goes up, and so on and so forth. So 28K, I saw another chart thing recently. It had the parabola. The parabola was drawn on there, and his parabola looked like it went to 140K pretty fast. So there's a lot of these people, when they look at the sell side and they say, well, what if someone who really wanted to buy Bitcoin, or a big mass rush of people who really wanted to buy Bitcoin came in? Well, at a certain point, there's no one left to sell to them, because no one is optimistic enough to set their sell at like 50K or to set their sell at 100K. So there just aren't any sells. So once you blow through that wall, then the thing goes crazy up, and then the sellers have to reevaluate, and they have to put their new sells up to cap that, to drag it back down, so that we can figure out the range, so that we can trade and fight and try to figure out the value of this thing, because that's what it really is at the end of the day. Is how much will someone pay you for one of these things? And apparently it's more when we do the show. What do
Yeah.
you think, Jimbo, about the price and what's been going on recently?
Yeah. So I'd like to say that this being my first on-camera interview is also when the price is pumping. So probably a coincidence. Almost certainly not related.
Definitely related. Whenever we have new people on the show, obviously the price jumps up 5%. So if anyone's thinking about joining the show, we put that Zoom stuff out there. We're gonna give you one more chance to join the show. Oh, it looks like that's not even a copy and paste. That's just a giant paste of hurl. Um, let's try some little shorter copy and paste. You can join the Zoom meeting. You can figure out one of these phone numbers. You can join us, but we're going to head towards the end of the show. But yes, Jimbo's first on-camera show, and we drove the price up 5%. The 8-ball even said it was going up. Then it went promptly up. Did you see how fast this prediction was? Ball says yes, price goes up.
I think that's the new meme. Ball says yes.
Ball says yes. So we're going to head towards the end of the show here. I'm going to put on the resume screen sharing. Then I get to go see what this looks like. I'm going to refresh my tally coin because the great thing about fundraising in Bitcoin is that when the price of Bitcoin goes up, so does my fundraiser, even if no one new donates. But we did have a couple of donations. We're up to 32 donations. Get your donation in there. Make it 33. You can use the Bitcoin network. We've got the Lightning network. You can give us $5 or $10 or dollar, whatever. But here it is. We're 84.9% towards our goal. We've raised $1,271 towards our goal of $1,497.97. We're using the brand new board that you guys bought. We're mixing the sound. We're paying for the Zoom, which is $15 a month to bring you this incredible live content, as well as the ball, which we'll be bringing you more information about that soon. We're going to try to do some stuff with that, but that's going to cost money, of course, too. But thanks again to everybody for joining us. Give us a thumbs up in the share. Jimbo, where can people follow you, find out more about what you're up to?
I occasionally tweet on Twitter at Hexlib, HEXLIB, and on Telegram, I'm Jimbo Coin.
All right. And we just had a brand new donation here on Tallycoin. Thanks to donor, let's see, is it the right? Oh, it's donor 2,400 2,400 I can't even say it right. 2,047 542 Satoshis. Thanks so much to the donor. We're up to 86% of our goal. So thanks to everybody in the chat giving us a thumbs up and a share. Thanks to Jimbo for joining us. Be sure to check out those conferences that we talked about on the Bitcoin group. We've got the Ugly Old Goat, the cruise out of Los Angeles. If you're in the Los Angeles area, it's the Working Man's Bitcoin Cruise. Try that out. Just a couple of weeks here. I'll be there. It's going to be super fun. Then we're going to Hackers Congress at Paralinzy Polis in Prague. We're going to be live streaming from there. It's going to be great. After that, we're going to the Transylvania Bitcoin Conference. I'm sure there's tickets still available. You can join us in Romania. Vlad the Impaler, Dracula's Castle. I'm going to get a tour. They say we're also going to a salt mine. You can see how they really mine real things in Transylvania. It's going to be great. And after that, I'm going to BitBrum in Birmingham. It's going to be a fantastic conference in Birmingham in the United Kingdom. Also might stop by the Lightning Hack Day. Check that out in Germany, in Berlin. So if you're in any of these areas and you can support your local Bitcoin conference, or if you just want to buy a ticket just to support them, check those out. We've got links all over the place, World Crypto Network and Twitter as well. Thanks to everyone for joining us. This for our first test Zoom show. Seems like everything worked. Nobody called into the Zoom. Nobody clicked on the link, not even a prank caller. So a little bummed out about that. I want to see some more phone calls next time, guys. You really got to sack it up. Think of some questions. Think of some fun things to talk about. You can call us on the Skype or on the phone or on the Zoom or on the other phone. But we'll try to do this show more often, which will inspire more callers. And maybe we can even check in with our pals who are out there on the road, who are probably saying something like, I didn't get a notification about that, or I would have joined, or I would have called, or whatever. But I know we got a lot of friends who are truckers out there who are doing their work, probably even on this Labor Day, this alleged holiday here in America. But thanks to everybody for joining us. We're going to head out, maybe go eat a Subway sandwich myself. But thanks so much for the donation and chatting in the chat. I'm going to push the end button, which I think is going to end it. We'll see. Until next time, bye-bye. Let's see. No, I don't want to end. Let's try this. Record, stop live.